It's been a while since I've been pike fishing on the Norfolk Broads, which given that I live in the heart of the Broads National Park is shameful. This year I have decided to do something about it and intend to spend some time in various spots on the Norfolk Broads fishing for pike. For my first pike session of the 2018-19 fishing season, I thought I would have a go on the River Bure at Wroxham, so here I am. To the left is Wroxham Rail Bridge in the main village, and to the right is Beela and Coltershall if you go far enough upriver. As you can see, it is a glorious summer evening and also very quiet with little boat traffic. Given the summer season hasn't properly started yet and the fact that England won a World Cup match today, I am not surprised by this. One of the biggest problems fishing the Norfolk Broads is the boat traffic and how they don't care where your line is and will go straight over it without a second thought. It's not just the motorboats either. The sailing boats are just as bad, if not worse, and will tack across the entire river without giving a stuff about anyone else. I would go as far to say the sailing boat owners are worse than the people on the motorboats, and they always have been. The lack of boat traffic is going to make this spinning session easier and far more enjoyable. There are a few boats around, but all of them seem to be moored up for the night, so aren't going to be any trouble. I'm going to be totally honest here and confess that I don't know how deep this stretch of water is, but when it comes to fishing for pike, it doesn't matter too much. I'm going to be fishing a diving crankbait, which doesn't dive particularly deep in any case, so shallow water won't be a problem. The Broads can be quite weedy this time of year, and it appears to be the case with this stretch of the Bure. The water isn't ever so clear, but in the few spots where visibility is good, there are plenty of weed beds on the bottom. The plug I am using is occasionally reaching the weed and catching it, which is far from ideal. If it were just weed on the riverbed causing an issue, a surface lure would be perfect. The problem is, there's a lot of weed and foliage floating down the river on the surface, so even a surface lure would be bringing in weed on every cast. The only thing I can do in this situation is to cast to the clear spots and reel in slowly. I don't really want to cast to the clear spots because this creates a random casting pattern and it's difficult to keep track of where I have and haven't been with the crankbait. Reeling in slowly will ensure the lure remains nice and shallow and doesn't dive too deep to catch the weed on the bottom. I've been fishing this particular swim for a while now. It's not all on video, I wouldn't want to bore you with that, so it's time to move swims and try a little further upriver. There's no point in going too far upriver, as there could be a pike lurking around just out of reach of the first swim. Besides, it's too hot to do too much walking tonight. So here we are at the next swim. There are a few features to cast to, being the overhanging trees and the indents in the bank, so hopefully there'll be a pike somewhere close by. This swim doesn't seem to be as weedy as the first, and the crankbait is coming back with no weed attached to the hooks most of the time. My spinning session on the River Bure lasted just over an hour and 40 minutes, and whilst I didn't catch a pike, or even have a hit on my crankbait, it was a worthwhile session. It's nice just to be out on the bank, rod in hand, flicking a lure, and having that feeling of anticipation of whether a pike is going to have a crack at the lure or not. The first session of the 2018-19 season has also been useful in highlighting my weaknesses and areas where I need to improve. This session clearly demonstrated how rusty and also lazy my casting has become whilst pursuing other species of fish. Spinning is more difficult than it looks, and whilst it appears to comprise simply flicking out a crankbait and reeling it in, there's a lot more to it than that. Casting is key in lure fishing, and you need to be fast and accurate. I clearly need to work on this. Observation is also key in lure fishing, and you need to keep watch over what is happening in the entire swim. You need to look for signs of pike, such as small fish jumping out of the water, bankside vegetation seemingly moving on its own, bird life that suddenly becomes agitated and spooked with something that is occurring under the water. This is my first session of many, and I have to say that I'm relishing the challenge. I hope you feel compelled to follow in my adventures, and if you have any tips or tricks you want to share, please feel free to do so. I am all ears.